The most perilous creatures are rarely those who strike with raised hands and overt aggression. They are those whose smiles are stitched together by the trembling threads of pretense, whose eyes glisten not with warmth, but with a cunning calculation too subtle for most to fathom. They do not announce their duplicity, for deception flourishes best in the quiet spaces between trust and doubt. Like a parasite, it drinks slowly, patiently, until one day you wake to discover your confidence hollowed out. There is a peculiar tragedy in humanity's craving to see virtue where none exists, in the hunger to believe that all hearts resemble our own. That longing, so gentle in its innocence, is also the softest place for a blade to slide between the ribs of certainty. In the theater of power, the liar is both actor and playwright, scripting scenes that soothe your suspicions. And yet, every performance betrays the performer. Observe closely, and you will find that no mask fits perfectly. A twitch of the lip, a flicker in the pupils, a momentary discord between gesture and word. These are the fissures through which the truth leaks, drop by drop. For the liar must always build an edifice to contain their falsehoods, and every brick requires more attention than the effortless simplicity of honesty. There is a weight to fabrication that cannot be lifted without consequence, a heaviness that reveals itself in overcompensation. Consider the one who answers a simple question with a soliloquy. When truth stands alone, it is concise, almost indifferent in its certainty. But a lie yearns for adornment, for elaborate proof that no one demanded. And so the deceiver embarks on a fevered recital of minutiae, dates and times recited with anxious precision, irrelevant observations poured like plaster over cracks they fear you will notice. You can almost taste the desperation in their voice as they weave the narrative, as if speaking more could conjure reality itself. But reality requires no such embroidery. It is only fiction that demands rehearsal. There is a particular beauty in the paradox that the more someone strives to appear credible, the less credible they become. And it is here, in the frantic attempt to perfect the lie, that the mask begins to slip. Silence is an acid to deceit. It eats away at the varnish until the raw wood beneath is exposed. If you wish to know whether a person's words are carved from truth or illusion, grant them space. Say nothing. Let them decorate the void with confessions they did not mean to share. The face, too, is a traitor to the liar's ambitions. Even the most disciplined performer cannot choreograph every microsecond of expression. There is always an instant, so brief it feels like a trick of the mind, when a mouth sags or an eyelid quivers. The seasoned observer knows to look for these tremors, a smile that ends too soon, eyes that dart to the door as if searching for escape, a voice that strains to reach a pitch of sincerity. These are not accidents. They are the body's revolt against the intellect's charade. For while the mind may contrive an elaborate fiction, the flesh recalls the truth. And so, you learn that deception is an art of incongruence. The liar must align intention, language, and presence in perfect harmony, and that is a task no human can sustain indefinitely. The repetition of the same phrases, word for word, is another fracture in the illusion. For memory is fluid in those who are honest, but it calcifies in those who fear contradiction. They clutch their script as if it were a raft on a storm-tossed sea, terrified that any deviation will drown them. If you probe their recollection from unexpected angles, you will see the terror bloom behind their gaze. They are no longer telling you what happened. They are performing a survival ritual. Yet it is not merely the lies themselves that matter, but the architecture of intent they reveal. A small lie is often the scaffolding for a grander ambition. The man who fabricates where he spent an evening may be testing the softness of your skepticism. The friend who slanders another in whispers may be cultivating your allegiance for battles yet unseen. And in these moments, you must remember that exposure is never about spectacle. It is about reconnaissance. When you illuminate the pattern, you reclaim your agency. You begin to see the game from above. The most formidable strategists in history did not rely on intuition alone. They dissected behavior with the precision of an anatomist. They understood that human beings are creatures of pattern, and every lie is a clue to the deeper fears, hungers, and ambitions that animate them. And once you perceive those hidden currents, you no longer fear the liar's weapons. You wield them. When you create a labyrinth of questions, you do not merely confuse the deceiver. You force them to reveal whether they possess the agility of truth or the brittle choreography of pretense. The honest mind adapts without hesitation. The liar must consult the internal manuscript, and in that pause, the mask is already slipping. It is a marvel how the simplest question, delivered without apparent menace, can shatter the illusion. Ask what route they took home, and you will hear the gears screech to a halt behind their polite smile. But perhaps the most elegant strategy is to seed a lie of your own. Offer them a morsel of false information and watch it travel. This is not cruelty, but clarity. A spider must tug at each strand of its web to know where the prey struggles. When your fiction returns to your ears in someone else's voice, you have seen the hidden network of loyalties and betrayals, and you will know precisely where to cut the threads. It is in the controlled confession, too, that a liar exposes their appetite. When you present a fabricated vulnerability, you create a stage where they feel safe to drop their pretense. Some will remain guarded, offering only platitudes, but others, intoxicated by the illusion of shared weakness, will unburden themselves of secrets they never intended to share. They do not realize that you have drawn them into a hall of mirrors where their reflection becomes their confession. And then there are the moments when the performance ends, when the room grows quiet and the applause of feigned camaraderie fades. It is here, in the stillness after the spectacle, that the liar reveals their truest self. A slumping of the shoulders, a flicker of contempt, a sigh of relief that the mask is momentarily at rest. These are the pulses of reality in the liar's theater. Watch them when they think no one is watching. This is when their soul shows through the cracks. Yet even when the truth stands naked before you, the impulse to confront must be restrained. Confrontation is a flourish for the unseasoned, an indulgence of ego that robs you of leverage. True power is the capacity to see without revealing that you see. When you deny the liar the satisfaction of knowing which of their fictions you have exposed, you trap them in a labyrinth of uncertainty. They will spend sleepless nights wondering which mask betrayed them, which word sealed their fate. There is a particular species of fear that arises when a liar suspects they have been discovered but cannot confirm it. It is a fear that erodes their confidence, that rots their certainty. And when they finally attempt to strike again, you can choose the moment to unmask them, not in rage, but with a quiet revelation that ends their pretense without ever raising your voice. This is the silent sentence that Machiavelli understood so well. To permit a deceiver to believe they still have the advantage is the sweetest cruelty. Even more potent than confrontation is the slow withdrawal of access. No proclamations, no accusations, simply a gradual sealing of the gates. They remain within the walls of your life, but their influence is reduced to ash. You still greet them, you still nod, but they are already exiled, and they do not even realize it. There is no victory so complete as the one your adversary does not see coming. Some liars serve another purpose. They are instruments for testing others. A known deceiver is a contagion that reveals who is susceptible. Let them spin their stories. Observe who repeats them unexamined, who defends them with too much fervor, who pretends indifference, but later quotes their fiction. In this way, you do not merely isolate one deceiver. You map the entire landscape of opportunism and cowardice that surrounds them. Not all liars are forged from the same alloy. Some are insecure pretenders, their falsehoods the scaffolding of a self-image too fragile to withstand scrutiny. They are pitiable in their desperation, but no less hazardous for it. When they speak with conviction, others are drawn into their delusions. To dismantle them, You need only hold up a mirror polished by reality. Offer to validate their claims with action. Suggest they prove the friendships and achievements they boast. Watch their bravado melt into disarray. Others are strategic manipulators, weaving lies with surgical precision to gain power. They are never more dangerous than when they appear most agreeable. They flourish in ambiguity, thriving on the unspoken and the unchallenged. For them, you must become the collector of receipts, the steward of evidence that exposes their artifice, not with accusation, but with questions so specific they cannot dodge. The more you anchor them in detail, the more their labyrinth collapses. And there is a subtler breed still, the emotional manipulator. They will cloak deception in tears, guilt, and the trembling performance of innocence wronged. They are perhaps the most exhausting because their lies appeal not to reason, but to the softest places in your heart. Resist the impulse to console or to defend yourself. Stay quiet. Stay factual. Their narrative withers without the oxygen of your emotional engagement. This, in the end, is the highest discipline. To remain unmoved in the face of dramatics, to cultivate the serenity that outlasts every performance. When you test the truth, when you verify rather than believe, you do not become callous. You become unassailable. You free yourself from the tyranny of illusions that others manufacture for their gain. The world will always be populated with those who prefer the easy power of a convincing lie to the humble honesty of a simple truth. But the crown does not belong to those who deceive. It belongs to those who see, to those who watch the dance without becoming its partner, to those who smile not because they are charmed, but because they already know the ending. When you have learned to see past the mask, you discover that the liar's power was never real. It was only the reflection of your own untested faith. And now, that reflection is gone. What remains is the clarity that no one can steal. When the curtain falls and the masks lie discarded, there is a hush that settles over the stage. In that silence, you finally understand the nature of power. It was never in the liar's words, never in their practiced gestures or their cunning performances. It was always in your ability to witness without surrender, to measure each deception without becoming entangled in its web. You realize the liar's greatest fear is not exposure, but the quiet certainty that you have seen them and chosen not to say a word, because in that stillness, you hold something they cannot reclaim, the knowledge that their illusions no longer touch you. And so you stand, calm, unshaken, watching as they flounder in the darkness they created, while you remain anchored in a truth so luminous it needs no defense.